And we are officially back. After a few scares, we actually got our first day of baseball in last night. Both our Yankees and Dodgers won. We didn't get a full game from the Yankees, which, whatever. I didn't end up making money at DFS. I took some wild card shots, didn't really hit, but it was sure fun to watch some baseball. Didn't really lose much either because it wasn't the slate you should be playing too big. And now we're ready with the real slate, man. I'm ready to get into this. I've really been waiting for this. Usually I like to start baseball season slow. Not only is there not an option because we don't have that many games and who knows how many we have, but I've been waiting for this, man. I'm ready to go. This is what we do. Let's go.
I am playing on FanDuel. I'm max entering that $3 thing with the $1 million for first or whatever it is. That's probably going to overlay actually.
They overlaid yesterday.
Okay.
DraftKings.
Okay. So I don't know. So that's what I'm playing. I'm 150 lineuping FanDuel and playing a little less on DraftKings. Just because. Again, it's not $3. so I'm gonna have a little different approach on DraftKings. And last night I was kind of tilted watching the cardboard cutouts a little bit, and just the overall baseball was kind of tough to get back into. But yeah, I'm ready to go. So again, with respect
we don't want that. We want the excitement. You're not excited about this slate? I haven't had a slate in a while, like to go over. I'm pumped.
No, I'm totally psyched. But what I want to do is I want to prepare everybody for what I think is probably now. Again, we're really interested in the input on what you would want from us. But for now, what I think we're going to do is we'll have it maybe 2 attacks on the slate, like one earlier in the day where we go over the plays, right, and who we think and who we like. And then we're hoping to do a little later in the day, either a live stream closer to lock or a video closer to lock or something where we've got a sense of ownership, a little better sense of ownership, and get a sense of where the industry's gone, maybe get some lineup changes, and so that we can really kind of tighten things up. But if any of this seems like repetitive for you, or you guys think that we're overdoing it or underdoing it, we're very flexible and we're very easy to figure out how to present this stuff. So that's where I'm at with this. You want to just get moving?
Yeah, I don't think we even need to ask. I think we know what we're doing. Let's just go ahead and do it. Let's get your screen up.
That's good.
We'll go game by game. If people have any other thoughts, we're always open to hearing them. But I think that's the way we're going to do it right now.
So just so what I'm showing here is literally a dummy lineup that I put together. So this doesn't even exist. So which is good. So what we're going to do is going to go game by game, and hang on just 1 second. Let me just pull something up on the screen that you're not seeing.
All right, so we're going to go let me go through this real quick. So yeah, we have the dummy. We have Cheats dummy lineup. We can share mine at the end. I've got some dummy lineups out there also, but
we're going to go game by game across the board like we usually do.
Okay, let's do it. Let's start off. Then let's just get right to it. Let's start off with Philly and Miami. I think this is an interesting spot to stack Philly potentially. The thing is, Alcantara is not all that bad, as bad as you might think. The weather's the hitting environment's great in Philly today. It's hard for me not to want to at least get some Philly stacks in there. They're one of my top 6 stacks. I'm still narrowing down, but they're definitely one of my favorites. How about you?
Yeah, so what I'm going to be focusing in on when we're doing this particular review is I'm going to be writing down, and when I say writing down, I'll type here, whatever. I'm looking at stacks that I'm going to look at, and then also kind of like a list of one-offs that I'm going to be playing. And when we come down to actually build lineups for me, what I'm going to just always try to do is have, some low-owned stacks with some high-owned stacks, and some high-owned stacks, some low-owned stacks, and some high-owned pitchers with some low-owned stacks, and low-owned pitchers with, and depending on what tournament I'm in, I want to make sure that I build these things right, especially when I'm multi-entering. So I like the way that you're kind of doing this. So yeah, my first take of the Miami-Philly game was that it was a very, very easy game and very logical game to go after. Partially because the best hitters are going to be probably 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in some sense for Philly. I mean, you have Harper and McCutchen and Hoskins, Bruce, and like these types of guys. They even added Gregorius. I don't know where he's going to fit, but Philly definitely seemed to me to be one of the main hitting stacks that I was looking for. Now, when I say main, I'm probably going to end up and you got to tell me if this is wrong. I'm going to probably have pieces of maybe 10 teams. You know what I mean? For 150 lineups, I mean, I can afford to like screw around a little bit, right? I'm not going to go like 30 teams or anything like that. But so Phillies are definitely going to be a part of it. Now, where ownership comes in, again, I think it's a little premature to speculate on that. But the thing that hits me the most about this game is
let's not go too crazy about ownership for hitting yet, because not only do we not know, it's a huge slate. It's a huge slate. There's plenty of options. Let's, game theory wise, it's going to be spread out enough to where you can do most things you want and not worry too much about ownership. Now, certain over chalk things, sure, we can get into, but like, and just from a game theory perspective, I don't think that you in general want to have that access to that many teams. It makes more sense on earlier in the season days because nobody's really all that awful pitching for the most part. There are I'm going to have an interest in the guy who's got the highest score against him, projected score against him. So we'll get into that in a little bit. But I think that right now, like, you really, really want to just like focus in on the teams you could see going off the most easy.
Okay. Do you like anybody aside from these 5 Philly guys that I put in the stummy here or no?
I'll have exposure to every part of them. The highest exposure I'll have will be I'll have Harper the most probably. I don't know, actually. The outfield's pretty tough. Harper, Jay Bruce, McCutchen are all the guys who I have the most, along with Hoskins, but first base is loaded too. So I also love Didi, but I love Lindor and Seeger, which we'll get into later. So those guys will take up most of my shortstop spots. But that's sort of the guys I'm looking at. And I don't mind anybody 1 through 9 here as part of the stack.
Now, outside of the stack, and we spoke about this a little bit yesterday, like which of these guys would you put as kind of one-offs outside of the stack? We talked about this yesterday.
So it's hard to know without knowing the batting order. Like Jay Bruce, I've seen projected anywhere between 4 and 7. I've been up since like 5 a.m. trying to go through baseball stuff. So I've really dug in this morning. I think that it's Harper, Jay Bruce, if he's batting 4th, which he might. If he's batting earlier or like in the lineup, I'd like him better as a one-off play, or maybe even a little 2-man thing. Alcantara is better against righties, but in general, you're going to see a lot of Miami bullpen, which is not a great bullpen. You can sort of always just assume that with the bad teams coming into the season, even though they might surprise people for a couple weeks at a time or something. It's a team you can sort of pick on a little bit. No pitchers are going to throw so many pitches today. So I like all these guys. And I think they all make sense as, Didi makes sense as a one-off depending on where he's batting, especially if it's 6 or above. McCutchen is probably a little higher than I'd want to go for a one-off, but he's fine. Real Muto is really expensive, but it sort of could build you a different kind of lineup if you use some cheap pitchers, which I'm going to recommend in a bit. So I don't know. That's what I'm looking at. And then I like Nola quite a bit. He's one of the pitchers I'll have, and it looks like you had him in your initial build.
Well, yeah. So let's talk about the pitching part of it, though. So yeah, obviously, I'm not going to be now. Again, you might be a little more crazy than I get. I'm not going to go after that many pitchers. I shouldn't say that. I have a pretty decent pitcher pool in what I was looking at, but I'm not playing Alcantara. But what I would, but Nola is clearly one of the top pitching options, right?
Yeah, I mean, you look at this Miami lineup, it doesn't really scare you. They're a little better than they were, probably. Philly, again, is still a pretty good hitting environment. You've got a pretty good projection here. Again, I'm not crazy about paying up for pitcher, but you're not really paying up. This is where it's sort of the middle ground. Panola seems like a logical guy who I'll have in probably, a third of my lineups today, maybe more. I don't know.
Oh, so he's that, yeah, okay.
Well, what do you think? Do you think that's good or bad? That to me, that's
no. I think that's a pretty decent. That's a pretty decent stand, and that means that you like him a lot, right?
A third on DraftKings. It's not like I wouldn't play him on FanDuel for a third of them, but I do like the DraftKings angle of playing Nola. And he's fine on FanDuel. I just prefer him on DraftKings.
All right. Anything else from this game? Like anything from Miami side that you're interested in, or not?
The only Miami hitters I'll have any exposure to, and I'll have a little bit, just because of the previous struggles with lefties, and then your former catcher, which is always interesting to me. So it's just VR, Dickerson, and Alfaro. I don't mind even making like a little like mini-ish, 2-man or something like that if you're going to fully stack this game. But I really don't think you need to do that on this slate. I think it's VR, Dickerson are the best ones, and then Alfaro. You know me, I like the catchers who used to catch for the pitchers when they were coming up. So
what do you mean by that? Say that.
He was the catcher for the Phillies. That's it.
Okay, so that's an angle that you sometimes play. It's to
Oh yeah, I mean it's just look, dude, it's just logic, man. If you've caught a pitcher if you've caught, like people say, oh, this guy's seen this guy 100 times, like he's faced him. What about catching a pitcher's like thousands of pitches from a pitcher? You don't think you have an idea of what they can throw? Come on.
right.
You know what I mean? At least look, if you're talking about the smallest margin in history in these projected things, you try and find any edge you can. To me, that's just a little edge I like to play with.
Okay, so let's move ahead then to Kansas City Cleveland game, and I have a lot of thoughts on this. And how good is Cleveland to release their lineup so soon? Very nice of them.
Very nice.
So I mean, I guess I'll go first.
Yeah.
So for me, when I first looked at the slate, Cleveland looked to be one of, if not my favorite stack, one of my favorite stacks for sure. And what's interesting about Cleveland is, and this is why I ended up going to them a lot last year, which is probably why a lot of people go to them a lot, is the best hitters, or you could argue that some of the best hitters are from those kind of tough to fill position spots, right? So if you wanted to play like Lindor, it's a really good shortstop spot, and Ramirez, third base or whatever it is, and Santana also. So all these guys are usually kind of like make the rest of your lineups work. And today they're going against Duffy, and if I'm not mistaken, I mean Cleveland could throw out 9 righties, or at least maybe not 8, 9 or something, and including Luplow, who is apparently really super strong, specifically against lefties. So this to me is, again, we're not talking ownership or anything like that, because I would imagine this is logical for everybody. But
Mm-hmm.
Cleveland looks like a very, very solid stacking situation where you could play pretty much anybody in the lineup.
Yeah. I love Cleveland. They're one of my favorite stacks of the day also. I don't know. I'm personally I'm having a little trouble for some reason calling up your screen. It just sort of froze on me for a second, but that's all right. I'll get it back. Yeah, I think that for me, it's basically going to be one of my top overall, stacks, along with a couple of my top overall plays in Lindor and Ramirez. I have a little bit of a different take than you do. I actually think they have the hardest to fill positions, because I actually like a lot of shortstops and third basemen in general.
Okay.
So I always find that because of it, and they tend to be over like a higher price, especially on FanDuel, so tend to get a little bit lower ownership over there. I remember there was one slate I won with Jose Ramirez each of the last 2 years. His one good game last year, but he was some ridiculous 5-point-something K on FanDuel and 3,900 on DraftKings, and he was like 30% owned versus 3% owned on FanDuel. I only played him on FanDuel. I remember he had his monster day. He literally won me a big tournament each of the last 2 years because of that. I really like my top play is Lindor, then Ramirez, then I like Santana. Again, it's hard because first base is pretty tough, but I like him a lot in this spot. I like Reyes and Luplow. Both can hit lefties. I think Reyes is going to be a little bit of a breakout guy this year, so I would prefer Reyes a little bit over Luplow. But this is definitely the guys you want to target. I'm probably going to skip even, I like Mercado, but the price is a little bit ridiculous. And but I don't mind going to Domingo Santana batting 7th. I probably will leave it there, though. I don't think I need to get Roberto Perez and Mercado in at these prices. Sure, if you really want to get contrarian, but you don't need to be that contrarian on this slate. And honestly, people will probably even squeeze a little bit of Perez in. So I just, for me, it's 1 through 7 with the priorities on the guys I mentioned in order. Lindor, Ramirez.
And any of these guys fit one-offs in some of your other builds? Okay.
Every one of them. Except I don't think I would play. I wouldn't mind even a one-off of Santana, to be honest, at that price. But I probably would, if I was going to play Santana, and maybe I would only do it if I had one other guy in the lineup or something. Because I think this is a good spot for them to get to KC and not just Duffy, but the bullpen too. This is a team that can hit lefties. It's just a really good spot for them. What I do want to point out a little bit, and I don't want to take too long on every game, but I think there's some worth focusing on. This is one of them. The weather there is hot, and it's blowing in a little bit. It's not blowing in much, but it's just, I don't know. I guess there's some other state, nowhere it's blowing in too much, but I just wanted to point out, I was sort of hoping for there was somebody who told me it was going to be winds blowing out today. One of my buddies in Cleveland, actually. And it doesn't look like that's going to be the case, but I still think the weather's good hitting weather. So we can still like the bats plenty. And then Bieber on FanDuel is a priority pitcher for me. Not so much of a priority on DraftKings, but certainly in the mix. How about you?
So I was going to ask you about that from the pitching side. So you think Bieber would be a more of a priority on FanDuel just because of price?
Yeah, and first of all, I think I still preferred Verlander to him on FanDuel, but I'm not sure. It's really close between the two of them if I'm going to spend up. And it's kind of easy to spend up, but it's also easy to – there's some great value on FanDuel too. But on DraftKings, I would say Bieber is a good solid play, but, not a guy who I'm going to have in – maybe somewhere between 15 and 25% of my lineups probably.
Yeah, I had him was in the, as I mentioned, I had 1, 2, 3, 4. I had like 10 pitchers I was looking at. He was one of them, but he was one of my secondary pitchers on DraftKings.
I would have him just above that, just because this Royals lineup is not all like they don't really scare me that much. And there's a lot of I just feel like there's enough Ks for that guy anytime he gets on the mound. So I actually like his upside. He's a high middle end option for me. How about that?
Yeah, so let's talk about Kansas City for a minute, because I actually had a lot of success, I guess maybe getting lucky and getting them when they happen to have done well, I suppose, or maybe I got the right pitchers and I did it well. But I got into playing these guys. I got into playing Merrifield and Mondesi when he came back, and Soler just looked like he was getting 3 home runs a day. You know what I mean? Like he's got incredible power. So I wanted to give this one a little extra look, because I know that, if Bieber, again, I don't want to talk ownership too much, but if in fact Bieber becomes owned, I want to look for kind of leverage spots against them. So I did kind of look at Cleveland for a little bit. I wanted to look into a little more whether what kind of stolen base numbers Bieber has against him, because Kansas City does like to love to get it going. You know what I mean? So if in fact I could do a little more research on that and see what Bieber is against that. Kansas City, now they're not one of my top, top teams to attack, but it's something I could be convinced of if somebody really wanted to convince me. And if I did want to play Kansas City, it'd be the guys I mentioned: Merrifield, Mondesi, Soler, maybe Alex Gordon, somebody like that. You have any like Kansas City at all, or not so much?
No.
Okay.
I think if you stack Kansas City today, you're just out. You'd have to lose your mind, because Bieber's really good. There's not it's just like it's no reason to leverage on this type of thing. But I do think that if you, look, there's guys who, if I'm going to play 150 lineups, that will probably end up in one or two of them, just because the power upside of Soler, the overall upside of both Merrifield and Mondesi, that if they squeak into one lineup, probably be Merrifield because he's multi-position, can play second base. I think the best play, actually, if you want, if it was like a smaller slate, because he would be unowned. They're all going to be unowned anyway, but so it doesn't matter. But Frenchie Cordero has shown power against righties in the past and has had some injury problems in San Diego. So I would be interested in looking at him on a different kind of slate, but on this slate, it just feels like, God, you really don't want to mess around with just playing everybody. So I'm gonna sort of leave this team alone.
So moving on, Milwaukee Chicago is one of the games I was actually less interested in than some of the others. I wanted to get your opinion on Woodruff as a pitcher, and I wanted to get your opinion on the game in general. Now, again, whenever Chicago's playing at home, you always have to look just to make sure it's not one of those wind games one way or the other. You know what I mean? There
is an 8-mile-an-hour wind blowing in right now, which is definitely I have no interest in playing hitters in this game. You've got the great bullpen of Milwaukee with Woodruff, who I think is an underrated starter. You have no idea how long he's going to pitch. Oddly, used to be a guy you didn't worry about. You worried about how long he pitched because Milwaukee doesn't. They play the playoff style baseball like every game, a little bit like Tampa Bay does. They'll use their 4 different relievers to take up a starter's role. But Woodruff actually can pitch and has stretched out a little bit. So I think there's upside if he's really cruising here. But this is kind of a tough lineup just to cruise through. But he's going to face a lot of righties, which is most of the power the Cubs have. So I think he's an interesting tournament dart. And I don't think you can – Hendricks is a better pitcher than his price would indicate, but it's a tough matchup, and he doesn't strike anybody out. So I'm just going to sort of not have a ton of interest in any part of this game. But if there's anything, it would be Woodruff as a pitcher.
Okay. Any one-offs you really like? I mean, again, I really would just I hate to make a game a cross-off, you know what I mean? Especially with some of the players in this game, but I couldn't play everybody, and that was my initial take. Was I was going to kind of stay away a little bit.
Yeah, I think that the best play, just because he's a better player than most players in the position, is Contreras.
Okay.
I don't like the spot, especially for anybody. If you end up with Kyle Schwarber in a lineup, I'm not going to hate it. You know what I mean? But Ian Happ is a really, really weird off the board play, just has weird power against righties. But I mean, these are not I just can't see getting into anything in this game, particularly. I'm not going to touch Chris Bryant. I like too many third basemen. I'm not going to touch Anthony Rizzo. I like too many first basemen. Just can't really do it. And also the weather, if it was blowing the other way, I would take some shots on some of these power guys. My favorite play would be Keston Hera, but I just think I'm going to leave it alone. I just believe in this kid. I think he's going to have a really big year, even though the price is over. He's too high price for anybody to play him. But again, just not the right day for me.
Okay, so you got me intrigued with your comments about playing a pitcher against whom they're.
You know it's coming up, huh?
That's I get. I wasn't expecting this. You know what I mean? But then when you said I'm going to be playing a pitcher who has a highest run total against him, now I'm just kind of trying to anticipate here a little bit. So I guess I'll throw it out there. So Baltimore against Boston. They're Boston rates to score, I guess, the most runs and the not say easiest to stack because they're going to be very, very expensive. But they're going to be recommended as a really top stack, and they have JD Martinez, who apparently is really just uber cheap also, and so he's going to be really popular and all this stuff. So my initial take was that Boston, if I in fact stacked them, was going to be one of those stacks where I would have to pair them with something really kind of off the board. And we can go through individual players in a second, but I wasn't going to play anybody from Baltimore, which is kind of weird because I'm really not too interested in Evaldi. I mean, I kind of followed him a bunch, and yeah, he had kind of a rough year last year and a couple of injuries, he never really got his shit together. You know what I mean? I know the guy can bring heat. I remember I had him a couple of times the year before where he was really bringing it, and I guess that if there was a spot to let him get moving, it would be against Baltimore. But he's a guy that's at the very, very bottom of my pitcher player pool. And I was not going to play Malone if that's the guy that you're referring to. So I'm very curious to hear what you think of this game.
Yeah, I'm all over Malone. I mean, I right now have between 30 and 35% of them. I just think that at 4K, he's actually going to start and has we don't think you got to look at the overall thing. So no pitcher is worth these high price tags. Even though that's my problem with Bieber or all of them. If there's anybody you'd think it would be help me out, top guy, Verlander. You just don't think you see how the way people are going to use people this year. And outside of the aces, I don't think you're going to see that much. And honestly, they're not stretched out as it is. So I don't think you're going to see above 90 pitches from most guys. So I don't like paying up for pitching. I think that this Boston lineup is, I like them as a stack in some ways. And then I look at the actual players. And as you would say, it's kind of rough business. I love JD Martinez. He's one of the, where I don't have Malone, he'll probably be in a good portion of those lineups. I love JD Martinez. He's one of the top plays on the slate for sure as a hitter. But Xander Bogaerts, I don't really love as ahead of the other shortstops. Malone is usually pretty good at limiting damage. Not going absolutely nuts in games. I don't know, man. I think that he can get through, if he can get through 5 innings and give up 3 runs even, I can get there with my bats. I can play whoever I want. And again, I'm not giving that much weight to the top end pitchers. And the weird part is there's a good amount of lefties he's facing for, well, actually not a good amount of lefties, but I would say they're 2 of their 4 best hitters are lefties in Benintendi and Devers. And I don't know. I'm giving Malone a little bit, also I'm not like Pilar and Chavez and Peraza. These guys don't have it power, like Christian Basket. I mean, what are we really afraid of outside of mostly JD and Xander? So
yeah, Michael Chavez is going to be probably 60% owned in cash if people do that kind of thing. I mean, especially if he's going to be hitting fifth. But like you said, I mean, you talk about leverage and stuff. If you want to play Malone is a perfect leverage. Now, again, I don't know what you're really going to do.
It's leverage. I actually think
that's what I'm saying. I don't even know what you're going to get from him. You know what I mean? Even if you play, you're just saving money by playing him, right?
You're saving money, and you're getting, if you get 12 fantasy points, you're fine. Right. I'm saying the top end pitchers are not going to get much more than 20. So if I can get all the bats I want and, do a different-ish type of build, and you know what, I flirted with the idea of maybe playing him with one of another even like middle to low end pitcher. But I think in the end, I can just play him with like a guy like Verlander if I want to, or maybe one of the guys just beneath him if I feel like it. I think that he's just really got enough upside against it. I'm telling you, this is a questionable Boston lineup. I know they might go nuts tonight, and don't get me wrong, they're one of my main stack teams too. Don't get me completely twisted. I just think at 4K for a pitcher that is just as likely of a chance, or not just as likely, but I mean, he might throw more pitches than Eovaldi tonight. It's really possible. I actually think straight up he might outscore Eovaldi, depending on how the Red Sox intend to use Eovaldi, which I still have heard a lot of different back and forth on. I don't also mind Eovaldi as a bottom tier guy, but I like the idea of taking a shot on Malone. I probably won't end up with as much as I have of him right now, but he is going to be in a quarter of my lineups or so. Like, it's just going to happen.
How many of your 25%, for example, do you think you're going to go kind of, I guess we can talk about other pitchers later, and then I'll ask you again, like, how much you're going to do double punting, or, you know what I mean? Like, or Malone with somebody on the cheaper side or mid-range so that you can get in. I mean, like, I was just kind of screwing around, like, for 7, even with Verlander, you could almost get in like full stuff that you want, you know what I mean, if you use Malone. So God knows what you can get in if you put Malone with someone else that's not Verlander, Yeah,
so and then you're really differentiating yourself if you're playing him with it, especially like a guy like maybe like a guy like Nola, you know what I mean? Because people aren't, if you play Nola, they might play Nola with, I don't know, one of the other guys in that range. And I just think that's just a lot of
like Flaherty or somebody like that.
Yeah, or Flaherty. Yeah, Flaherty's obviously, I'm sorry, he's the number one guy, but we'll get to that in a bit. But anyway, I just think Malone's worth a shot. I also don't mind, a little bit, like I said, a little Eovaldi. And I told you the bats I like for Boston. But I think on the Baltimore side, the only guys you can really take interest in are Santander. And look, it's our Chris Davis thing again. He's 3.1 against the guy who's throwing fastballs and is, probably going to strike out 3 times or 4 times or whatever it's going to be. I'm probably not going to do a bunch of it, but I might throw him into a lineup just because everybody's saying you can't play Chris Davis. Somehow the guy ends up winning me money every year. I don't know how.
Oh, Chris Davis with a K, you mean, or with the C?
No, with the C. I love Chris Davis with a K. See, Chris Davis with the C. I'm talking about throwing in like a couple out of 150 lineups. I'm not talking about playing him a bunch. I'm just saying if there was an actual matchup that benefited him, it might be this one in Boston.
Just as a further, I mean, again, I don't want to do all this right now, but just for example, I mean, if you were able to get Malone in and even just putting Flaherty in, and we'll get to him in a minute, but I mean, look what you could do if let's say you really like these Phillies and Clevelands. I mean, you could get like all of this stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And be in business, so to speak. With, like you said, if Malone gets 11 fantasy points or something like that, you're going to be very happy about that when if you go get Philly or Cleveland or some other stacks that we'll look at later to go off. So yeah, I mean, again, I wasn't even thinking about Malone. That's really good stuff.
It's just if you read, like I read Cheese's article this morning, shout out to, RG's put out great tools and stuff, but Cheese is really like the gold mine of baseball. Like I don't care who you are, if you want to listen to this guy, he certainly made a case for it as well. I don't know, again, this is early in the day, but in my initial builds, I definitely like me some Malone, but maybe again on this slate, because there's other good options, maybe I don't need to put him at 30%. Maybe I can get away with just like 20 or 15, but anyway, well, we can move on, but he could be on a winning lineup tonight. Just keep that in mind.
So the next game, I was actually had the majority of my interest was going to be in the pitchers, and I didn't really get too much into the hitting part of it. Herman Marquez and Lance Lynn are both in my pitcher pool. I actually had Marquez rated as one of my top 4, actually. And so that's that. And then on the Texas side, again, I've never had much luck picking when Lance Lynn was going to have good games. But he's certainly in the list of 10 or so pitchers I was going to play. So I was waiting for your opinion on that. And I didn't have all that much interest in – actually, Texas was going to actually be the last team I would throw in a stack, actually. I didn't quite get to Colorado, but again, I think my main interest in this game was going to be Herman Marquez. And then after that, I was really just honestly I was going to wait to hear what you said and just do a little more research on it.
Yeah, I like Marquez better than Lynn. I don't feel in love with the spot for either of them, but I do actually think there's upside enough for Marquez to where I could end up regretting that. And I've got him in my 15 to 25 right now, but I think he's a guy who I could see boosting up a little bit.
That's a lot, though, isn't it? I mean, I guess maybe not on draft.
We're using 2 pitchers, so 200.
Right,
it's not, you know what I mean? It also, obviously, you know that. But
okay.
like, maybe to someone who's listening, to them it might sound like a lot of percentages, but it's really not. I'm actually pretty close to my actual percentage owned. Like it's better than it usually is on my builds today because I spent a lot of time on it. But yeah, I mean, look, it's Texas. It's hot now. This is like the late Texas weather, so you've got great hitting conditions. But you also do have the wind blowing in a little bit, which shouldn't hurt things too much with the way that the hitting conditions are with the heat. But I think it's just going to be stabs for me. A little bit of Odor here, a little Gallo here, a little bit of David Dahl, a little bit of Daniel Murphy. That's basically a little, maybe play Blackman in 1 or 2 lineups, maybe play Arenado in literally 1 or 2 lineups. But overall, I'm okay with not really focusing that heavily on this game. And if it bites me, it bites me. I don't like it very much as a stack, but I do like those individuals as little one-offs, and I don't even like them that much.
All right, so the next game is going to be – we could probably do a whole thing on this next game, all right? So the Minnesota-Chicago, there's a lot going on. Let's start with this. We'll start with Lucas Giolito. Lucas Giolito went from being one of the great underperformers 2 years ago to one of the great overperformers last year, right? And question is going to be whether which Lucas Giolito shows up this year. Is it going to be the one that flashed all that Cy Young upside basically all season?
I want to interrupt you real quick. Sorry. I don't think this is a real debate. I think he's the pitch. I don't think it's just a guy who was young. He was like 21 years old. You know what I mean? It was like Scherzer when he was young. You know what I mean? This guy's a stud. I don't think we have to question him. I really don't.
Yeah, well, okay. It's definitely a point of contention. Let's put it.
I know. I'm interested because I've heard. I know you listen to a lot of these other people, and I'm actually curious. I know those people sort of like to phrase things like that in the DFS world because they've been on that end with Giolito, and because they made him so cheap before, like people would play him when he was really bad and still figuring his stuff out. I just don't think we can treat him like the same pitcher after what we've seen from him. Now he does have an incredibly tough matchup tonight, so that's one thing. But he's I think we can treat him as if he's a guy who's in the same category as Berrios going further with much higher strikeout upside.
Well, so that was the one thing. The second thing is both of these teams are garnering a lot of, I don't want to say ownership, but a lot of analysis. Let's put it that way.
Uh-huh.
And let's start with Minnesota. I mean, Minnesota. They led the American League in home runs by like an insane amount. Okay, they had just incredible power all year, and I think they added Josh Donaldson just for the hell of it, right? And I think every single game that they play, you have to look into possibly playing them. You know what I mean? And so that's the one thing, and we'll circle back to that. And then yet on the other side, you have the White Sox, who I did really, really well with last year as kind of low-owned guys, and just Tim Anderson and Moncada. There's another guy, Elroy Jimenez. I had luck with him, even some Leroy Garcia. And then and Abreu, not to mention that. And they decided just for the hell of it, add on like actual good play. I mean, they got Encarnacion, they got Yasmani Grandal. You know what I mean? Like so this could be a team like again that just pretty much every day you have to look at as a possible team to use. So I think this whole game is really live. You know what I mean? Like from both hitting perspectives, maybe Giolito also. I don't know if I can get to Berrios just because I think there are a lot of pitchers I'm going to use before him. But I mean, is that analysis seem sound? I mean, what do you think of this game?
I agree. I completely agree. I think that I'm going to have a few little mini stacks of Minnesota. I'm not going to go nuts with them because I believe overall in Giolito, and I think I can try and get some home run hunting. I think that you're going to see 5 to 12% of pretty much every player in the lineup of Minnesota, at least in some in some of my lineups. You know what I mean? They're going to be 5 to 12% owned probably. I'm with you. This is just a team loaded with talent power. I'm expecting a bounce back from Donaldson too. After an up and down last year, Sano was hurt last year too. He's another guy. He's gonna be batting 8th. Like, I'm gonna take shots on all these guys. They've all got the pop. If there's one way you probably want to play against Giolito, if you're gonna try and attack him, I would use the lefties. And again, you can always stack Minnesota the same way you can always stack the Yankees. I mean, but I think that you're best off trying to pick out a couple spots you like. Okay with Polanco. Garver's high price might keep people off of him, but the guy was just amazing. Even guys like Buxton, if you want to do like a mini 3-man stack with him and maybe Kepler and Cruz, they all make some sense. I'll have sprinklings of all of them. I hate the matchup for them, but again, like you said, these guys are just too good to just overlook, and they certainly can't be written off as it's like I feel about the Yankees. You just cannot write them off any night. And the Dodgers are right there too.
And the White Sox. What about the White Sox?
I'm not as afraid of the White Sox have enough holes in their lineup where, enough.
They do?
No. First of all, they've got a strong enough lineup. Don't get me wrong. But I mean, Lurie Garcia, Nicky Delmonico, Luis Rivera, the bottom of the lineup is not, studs or whatever. But Eloy Jimenez also, even though I like him a lot, there's K upside for all these guys. So I actually think that Berrios, but he's not a high enough K pitcher for me to have a huge interest here because, again, they just kind of scare me a little bit. But it wouldn't surprise me if he had a solid outing. So he's still on my list, but he's very low on it. As far as the hitting, I just can't find a way that I would want to stack against Berrios. Doesn't make a lot of sense to me on 11 games played. But I could see playing. I mean, I think you're going to see a huge year from Moncada, or maybe not this year, whenever the next full year is, but it might be this year. I just think he's hasn't quite hit his full potential yet. You can always argue for some of these other guys. I just think that on this particular slate, I'm going to stay away.
Okay. And they actually did not make it's so funny. The Minnesota did, but Chicago actually did not make my list of teams I was going to stack until I'm starting to look at it. I might end up trying a little bit. All right. So Pittsburgh, St. Louis, I guess we have to start. You have to start with the pitching because, Flaherty had just an incredible end to last season. He was just bringing it every freaking day. And so he's going to be one of the top-rated pitchers of the day. And he's certainly one of my top 4 or 5 rated pitchers of the day also. The only thing I'll ask your opinion on this. Pittsburgh, traditionally, in the last couple of years, not exactly the strikeout team. You know what I mean? They always seem to kind of scrap. You know what I mean? I don't know if they lost anybody. They lost Dickerson, right?
No, they lost everybody. They have nothing in their lineup.
Oh, okay. So Flaherty would be the guy I would go to. And St. Louis also from a hitting perspective, and we'll get to why I might like this in a minute. From a hitting perspective, they're kind of cheap. You know what I mean? They're gonna fit into some builds. If you just for example, I wouldn't recommend this, but if you just ran optimizers or whatever, St. Louis is gonna pop into some builds, and I don't know if that means you want to play them necessarily, but they're gonna come off cheap. And the reason I think of that is because I don't know if this is gonna be another year of this, but I remember last year, I think literally every time Musgrove pitched, he was 30% owned. He was always I'm saying that facetiously, but he was always really cheap. And people always kind of every time he pitched, it was like, I'm playing Musgrove, and I'm not happy.
I think it was exactly so. There was half the time he was totally cheap, and then half the time he was 4% owned because he was 9K. That's what I remember because I had him at 9Ks and I had him in the 6Ks, and it was crazy how you'd have this incredible chalk guy who all of a sudden nobody played, and the results would vary. I guess that's why he was all over the place. But right. Yeah, he definitely is. I agree. He's the guy who everybody's very familiar with him.
So that's you always I might consider if he starts to get some traction, I might go into St. Louis. But St. Louis is not really the team I'm going to be attacking today. Just too many other options. But what do you think about Flaherty and anything else I said? Or
Yeah, I'm with you on most of it. I really like Flaherty. I think he's the top pitcher on the slate on DraftKings. I think that Musgrove is completely viable on DraftKings, and I don't know what the ownership's going to be, but I think I will. I have a lot of interest in both these pitchers. Obviously, not specifically together. Not that it's the worst thing in the world. Just not. Look, you've got a little bit of wind blowing in, but it's great hitting weather. It's really warm, so it's a little scary, and it's very humid also, or 60% humidity. It worries me a little bit, but I do have interest in these pitchers, and I also I'm not going to be using a ton of Musgrove, so where I'm not using Musgrove, I'm going to be using some of these bats, like you mentioned, from St. Louis. They're just a little cheap and on both sites, and you have guys who sort of underperformed last year, like Goldschmidt, who like at 4.2. I mean, when he played in Arizona, if Goldschmidt was 4.2, he was basically going to be 35% owned in almost any matchup. You know what I mean? Even at first base. He was a top end guy. Why do we think he's going to that's who he's become? Because he had a bad year. I think he's one I would go back to the history on. Same with Carpenter. I believe Colton Wong, I've thought he was going to have a breakout year for the last 9 years. Yadi Molina. But it's funny though, is he does well for me in fantasy because he ends up batting 7th or 8th and he has a little bit of pop. He can steal a base here and there. There's some advantage to it. Yadi Molina is just a good priced play at catcher. Like he's 3.6, a very reasonable price. Would make sense in sort of a cashy type of build probably with the way that the catchers are priced up today. Probably not going to get into the Tyler O'Neills and Dexter Fowlers much, but these guys are all cheap. So, you might see 10% of some of these St. Louis guys like the Wong. Wong stands out to me the most. And I like the Carpenter Goldschmidt. I just like those positions a lot more. But Wong if he does in fact lead off at 3,700, I feel like is a really, really good value. So he's a guy I already have in a number of lineups.
All right. So the next game's probably going to be the death of me. Maybe it won't be because this is why I love doing these things. So if I talk this out, that I could talk myself off of what I was going to do. Okay. So again, when everything first came out, I had a really, really strong opinion, and very few people seem to be on it, and so it's making me like it more. I hope I don't go too crazy. So again, he didn't have the leash last year that a lot of people wanted, and like going into this year where you think in general pitchers aren't going to be pitching that many pitches anyway. Seems even worse to pick a guy like this, but I don't know. I know what I saw. This guy Paddock's freaking awesome. Guy is insane freaking stuff. He's a tremendous pitcher, and I'm going to be looking to play him. I don't know if that's just really, really dumb, especially considering what that they're not stretched out or whatever. But if he's going to be, if no one's going to own him, and again, I don't want to talk too much about ownership. He's definitely making my short list of pitchers I'm going to target. And in addition to that, I'm kind of interested in a low-owned Padres stack too. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. To play against Bumgarner, who freaking bum. You know what I mean? Like, so again, I don't want to play too much of it. And I'm kind of glad that I'm playing like 150 lineups on FanDuel, because I have this weird feeling that if I've played like 10 lineups, I might get like 4 of them or 5 of them with Paddock and maybe 3 of them with San Diego, and I end up like having too much of them. But this way I could play only maybe 5-10% of San Diego, or if that, and still be maybe over the field. Talk me off of this. Talk me what's going on. You like anything in this game at all?
So I'm struggling with Paddock.
Okay.
My first thing is, first of all, I know his stuff, and the way his changeup moves is going to basically put it so he should be better, and he was better at times against lefties last year, and he was in the minor leagues as well at times. I think that these are tough lefties. There's lefties that scare me a little bit, and not only just from a hitting perspective, just not huge K upside. Like, I mean, between Calhoun, Marte, Ketel Marte, that is, they also have Starling Marte now in the lineup. So they've improved a little bit overall. David Peralta, and even then we'll see what Jake Lamb is going to be now. I mean, I actually would throw Lamb in a few lineups just because he's 2,800 if you need the savings. But yeah, as of right now, I have Paddock at 23%, pretty as an even number. But I'm sort of like flirting with more or less, and I can't quite pull the trigger. I think this Arizona team, they're pesky enough to where it worries me a little bit, but I also think that there's upside here. And he threw 87 pitches, I believe, the other day. So I feel decent that he'll get 90 pitches, and at the price point, that's probably good enough. But, it's like I feel very similarly about a lot of pitchers today. It's what's going to happen when they price everybody the same and they're all in similar spots.
I mean, it's kind of hard to take him when you could pay a few hundred more for Nola against Miami, right? I mean,
but you could play them together. My first build on DraftKings that I did without reading or looking at anything had those two together.
Okay.
That was the natural way that I built, but not anymore.
Anyway. What else in this game? Anything else?
So from this game, Machado, definitely one of the better plays overall at shortstop. I'm sorry, where were you playing him actually now? See, he's back to third. Actually,
yeah.
Sorry. Well, then he's a little. Yeah, that's why I've got him at 11%. So unfortunately, can't really play him as much as I want to because again, I like other third basemen who we haven't gotten to. We haven't gotten to a lot of my favorite plays, and we've already taken up quite a bit of time.
This is good. Dude, I got all day for this. I mean, baseball, 11 games, it just requires more time. It just requires more time. That's all.
Yeah.
Excuse me, I did a NASCAR video. It took me 11 minutes. You know what I mean? It's different. Baseball is like
right.
It's a little while. That's all.
Tatis, Mejia. That's pretty much the extent of it. I don't think I'm going to do the stack. Oh, Will Myers.
Okay.
No stack for me personally. Okay. Interested to see this new. Oh, I'm sorry. And so I don't want to stack all of these guys together, but I do kind of like Tommy Pham as well. So I get it. I just don't think I'm going to end up doing it on this slate, but I definitely will have little dabs of those guys sprinkled.
Okay. So let's have some fun. Seattle against Houston. All right. First of all, you got Justin Verlander, who is, going to be the top projected player on the slate. He's got an incredible strikeout rate. He reminds me of the Cole and Scherzer play from the other day. They have incredible strikeout upside. He doesn't have 7-8 innings upside or whatever it is, but they're facing a team that strikes out a shitload, right? And it's pretty much the matchup that you kind of want. I mean, the only guy I'm really afraid. I mean, not the only guy, but I mean, Vogelbang, whatever his name is was pretty good. He flashed some power, but you know what? Let everyone give out a couple of home runs. It won't even matter. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So he's a very safe play. If I were playing cash, I'd find a way to play him, and I have no real issues with him. The other guy I think that was so funny that I used to play on Seattle. I think he's gone. They don't even have Narvaez. They got rid of him. So Seattle's going to have a problem this year, I think. And as far as the hitting goes, I mean, I don't know if Marco Gonzalez is going to throw at Houston, get batters or whatever it is, but I mean, Houston, they're probably worth playing. I mean, it's they're really good. They have Bregman, Altuve, Springer, Brantley. I mean, it's one of the stacks that are just kind of worth going after. No getting around it.
Yeah, you have guys who are some of the best hitters in baseball, basically versus lefties. And look, this matchup happens all the time because they're in the same division. So I have a huge history of, hey, this is when you want to fade Houston, but that's like on different slates. And we look at it overall. It's not a huge sample, but 110 at bats they've had as a team against him, with only 3 home runs, but only 15 strikeouts. So, and a lot of guys with pretty good BVP numbers, but not a lot of power. So, again, it's not a huge sample, but it's something worth looking at. I think that he's pretty good at limiting damage in general, but I still like this Houston team a ton, and they're definitely one of my 6 stacks as of this moment. The main guys you want are pretty simple. I think Springer's number 1 because I think he'll be lower owned with being an outfielder at the extremely high price, and has the most extreme power splits versus lefties of all their best hitters, career-wise, not judging on last year. Bregman, but a loaded third base position. Altuve is the guy you want at second base overall, just definitely as a one-off, as a stack. One of my favorite guys in this stack would be Michael Brantley. Great price at 4K. Can hit lefties well. You don't need power out of him. He's such a good hitter all the time, but he actually does have enough power to where he can get you there. I don't mind Correa, but I prefer the other shortstops I mentioned earlier. Maldonado is probably, a solid option at catcher at 3.3 because we like the stack. And then you want exposure to everybody else, Gurriel, Miles Straw, Reddick. Just get a Reddick. I don't even know if he'll start tonight, but my guess is somehow Diaz will get in the lineup. Or so I don't even actually know who their other righty guy will be right now, but we'll wait for the lineup. But right now, I would get exposure to everybody. I will have this stacked different ways, but mainly it's going to be Springer, Altuve, Bregman as the priorities.
All right. Anything else in this game? I mean, no interest in.
I love Verlander, but I want to make a couple really quick points about his whole season, and it's important.
Sure.
He's changed his arm angle to try and extend his career, which always means the strikeouts are going to be much lower. It usually means the home runs will go up. The weird part about that is this guy gave up so many bombs last year compared to what he ever did. It's hard to imagine that. But if that is the case, I just wish – I think we'll find other spots to fade and pick up. Like, I'm not going to go crazy with him tonight. I'm going to probably be near the field in terms of Verlander ownership. I do think if there's one guy who could get – other than Garrett Cole, Max Scherzer, and – maybe Trevor Bauer, I can't think of another pitcher who just throws deep into games more consistently. So but again, if he's trying to extend his career in this weird season, it's just hard to know what they're going to do. So paying that price, it doesn't seem like you need to do that. But at the same time, you might be missing out on an 11K 6-inning performance that wins you a slate. So I think you want to be near the field. Maybe I'll be a little bit above just because I still love Verlander. I still believe in him, but it's tough. It's a little bit of a tough one for me, like a lot of pitchers.
I mean, like if what you said is true, that he might actually have even more home run upside against him. Maybe Vogelbach's a decent one-off after all.
I have Vogelsong in it. Vogelbach in it. Vogelsong. I have Vogelbach in there, 5 to 8%. He's the only one I'm playing. Seeger. I'm sorry. I have Seeger in at 3 to 7%.
Okay.
I like Seeger. I mean, the third base is loaded.
Okay.
We haven't even got two of the best games yet with the guys who I love at third base.
All right, so let's go on to San Francisco and LA, and I don't want to spend too much time on last night, but the idea would work, man. Cueto was just fine, right? Got his whatever points, they got him out of there, and then they destroyed the bullpen. It
didn't really work though because
I know.
He didn't put up any fantasy points compared to the other guys.
No, I know.
I was actually a little annoyed because I ended up with a lot of Dustin May, and he can throw 90 pitches. Like he can be a starting pitcher. They just didn't plan on using him that way, so they didn't. But that was a little frustrating.
All right, so I mean, this is going to be unfortunately something that's going to be said every single day. The Dodgers are a tremendous hitting team. They should always be considered as plays, and whether they are expensive or not, they have to be considered regardless of slate size.
That situation once you get coming into the season,
I don't know. You got something going on?
Sorry about that.
Oh, okay. You might even think that I might even be more inclined to play them against lefties just because they're just such locks against righties that maybe they would get like a little less ownership maybe against lefties. But
I don't think they're going to be crazy owned tonight.
Well, because it's a zillion team slate, but I'm just saying like in general, you know what I mean?
But they're an under-owned team in general, man. People see the weather and they just don't want to participate in it.
Well, fact of the matter is they're playing Samardzija, who's, whatever is I don't want to say he stinks, whatever, but he's a righty playing against the Dodgers. Any righty playing against the Dodgers stinks. That's just the way it goes. So
period.
You got let's just for in case you've been living under a rock, you got Max Muncy, you got Bellinger, you got Corey Seager, and then they have Mookie Betts this year. Oh, well, why not? Jacques Peterson, again, he's a lefty. He's going to be starting. Justin Turner. Everybody, right? Pollock, whoever's starting is in play. Every combination of stack is in play. And not a lot else to discuss. But I shouldn't say that, because I'd love to get your opinion on which of these guys are more of a priority, which of the guys is cheapest, what kind of combinations you think is best. And then we could talk about pitching, because I also think that the pitcher for the Dodgers could be kind of sneaky tonight. So Stripling. So what do you think about this game?
Well, they never let Stripling go too far, so that always worries me a little bit.
But no one's going too far this year.
But no one's
right?
going.
So,
I was gonna say. So yeah. So it sort of mitigates a little bit of the risk. They also use the number of guys bullpen, but that doesn't really worry me. I would like to use that as an excuse to maybe get on Stripling a little bit more. But I just don't know that we're going to be able to. So I will have some interest in him. I don't know how much I'll end up with of him, but he's definitely one of the guys for me. One of the lower interest guys, but I'm still have interest. I don't know. I might get on him more by the end of the day. I just sort of am wrestling with it right now. It's really that attempting 3.5 run total for a guy who's 7.9K. But I like obviously I like the Dodger lineup. I want to point out, I'm in LA. The weather is not ideal for hitting. It's been a little dreary. It's going to be like 69 tonight. So it takes away a little bit of my risk. a little bit of my interest tonight, unfortunately. I wish that I could say something else, but it's just where I'm at. I think that the best play on the Dodgers by far is Corey Seager. He not only has a good BVP against Samardzija, which is not a huge thing, but he's he's my pick to win the MVP this year. I love the price, love the batting spot now, love the lineup overall, love that he plays shortstop. I just think him and Lindor are just right there for best shortstop of the day to me. I love Muncy, but it's going to be Seeger and Bellinger in the most of my lineups, and then the stacks go all the way through. I think Kiki Hernandez is a much better hitter than everybody realizes, and it's almost like they just didn't know because he's been platooning. The fact that he's starting against righties and had a nice night last night, batting sixth, he's interesting. Pollock has hit Samardzija well in the past and has some familiarity with him, and even batting late in the lineup, I don't mind using him in stacks. Justin Turner always in play. Probably a little bit less interested in him because, again, good third baseman, but to pay that price for him, you really want some huge power upside. He's a great hitter, but not as much of a power hitter as some of these other guys. And then obviously Betts you can always play. But you want to, Seager and Bellinger and Muncy would be my preferred ones along with Betts. And then, that's basically it. I don't really have a whole lot else to say about that. You want to stack the Dodgers. They're one of I'm not 5-man stacking them. I'm 3 and 4-man only for Dodgers for me.
Why is that?
The weather. I'm telling you, it worries me enough to where there's too many good hitting environments, but there's these guys, have done this a million times before in the same environment. So it's not like the worst too. It's just not ideal.
All right. And no hitters from San Francisco, I presume.
Rob Brantley is minimum cost in catching probably. So I always will play a minimum cost catcher if he plays.
Okay. All right. Last game is Oakland against the Angels, and first of all, from the Oakland side, they were actually again like the last team that I'm thinking about playing from the hitters. I don't know if they've made it into my builds yet, but they're the ones that are knocking on the door. For pitching, I'm hearing a lot that Montas is a pretty good play. I got to look into it a little bit more. I just never had any luck playing him, so I got to look into this. And Heaney's another guy. I just never seemed to get right, like for the pitchers from the Angels. So I have this weird feeling I'm going to end up kind of staying away from this game. Sure, you could always play Mike Trout. Whatever. And I think Ohtani might end up having a good year this year also. But maybe even Goodwin. Maybe he's a guy you could play. I didn't really have – maybe it was lazy. Maybe I just got so interested in these other games. And when I was done with the Dodgers and San Francisco, I'm like, I don't need any more games. Oh, shoot, this Oakland game. So, again, I have moderate interest in this game in general. Very, very little, nothing to get excited about. But if you were going to play Oakland, and you can go through this, the plays become kind of obvious. Laureano, Chris Davis with a K. We won't go through those, but what do you think? Is Oakland going to make your main builds or not really?
Yes, they're my other team, but it's going to be a lot of 3, 4, 5 man. It'll be all of it actually. I also like Heaney as a pitcher on FanDuel at 6,700, and he's actually got a pretty good K rate against these guys, and and like only 100 plate appearances versus the team, but I think it's like 26% or something like that. It's not terrible, not great or anything, but I just think he's a solid play at 6,700 on FanDuel. Not so much interest on DraftKings. Love Matt Chapman, maybe my favorite play of the day at third base.
Okay. So let's get into this. All right.
Yeah, he's I've got him right now at 28 to 35, but it's again because I love third base. Otherwise, I'd have him higher even. Crushes lefties, good price. Heaney can be good against righties, but I'm not overly worried about it. Don't love the stadium, the weather, same thing. But I definitely can get behind some Chapman. I love Chris Davis with a K. Always So my two favorites to win the MVP this year in the American League are in this game, which is really weird because it's not Mike Trout. But Chris Davis with a K and Shohei Ohtani are my
favorite. Those are strong. Those are big underdogs, right?
Yeah. I mean, but part of the reason I like them too is the way the season formats. Chris Davis gets on these hot streaks where if he hits 25 home runs in 60 games, which he's done he basically does it every year at some point. So if you get that right, Chris Davis, that's he might hit 5 or 6 more home runs. He might hit 20% more home runs than anybody else does. So I love him, and I love Ohtani just because I just think he's about to explode. That's just where I'm at. But that's what it is for me. It's a lot of those guys, and then really only Ohtani and.
Hey, let me ask you one other question because you referred to it so many times during this show, and I wanted to get back to it. How do you know? In other words, like you said, well, I might stack them, but only a 4 or 5 man, or only a 3 or a 4 man. Is that more based on, I don't know, like on the, like for example, I just threw in these 5 Oakland guys, right? So is it because like would you be more inclined to play a 5-man stack if you also thought that I don't know that you could go after their bullpen also, or is it just because of the 5 particular guys in the stack, or is there something better about 4-man or 5-man stack in certain situations? Like, you want to talk a little more about that, or is it just really it's all slate dependent?
To get off of what everybody else is doing to not play the 5-man stacks, I think 5-man stacks while it totally works if you're playing max lineups, which I'm not. I mean, again, I might be maxing out one tournament, but I'm not maxing out every tournament I'm playing in. So I can't play with the same strategy that everybody else is going to. And look, the 5-man is the safer way to do it. To really have a chance to beat those kind of – a lot of times when I win those big tournaments that are, the big buy-in ones, I'll win by a bunch in baseball because I will take completely different routes. I like to do the 4-man, 2-man, that kind of a thing. And I just think that it's another way of getting different. And it also, if you're accurate and you do your research, like Cheese would tell you the same thing, playing the best players is never wrong. You don't need to stack every time. It's sort of the lazy, easier man's way to do it.
So when you say 5,
correlation means a lot more on FanDuel than it does on DraftKings.
Say that one more time.
Correlation means a lot more on FanDuel than it does on DraftKings.
And why is that?
Because the runs and the RBIs are valued at 60%, 66% higher and 50% higher than they are on DraftKings.
Yep. Now, when you make a 5-man stack, again, like, do you try to make it, 5 with a 3 or 5 with 3 one-offs? I mean, because for me, it always looks so pretty. You know what I mean? When you have like a 5 and a 3, like it feels like you only need 2 things to happen, right? Whereas if you go 5 and then like 3 one-offs, it feels like you need 3 things to happen. 4 other things to happen, but where do you usually come off with that? I mean, are you like kind of, because I always feel afraid to play the one-offs, because I always feel like I'm missing something if I'm not pairing them with something.
Yeah. Wait, sorry, say that last part one more time?
No, like for whatever reason, I always feel more comfortable with a 5 and a 3 as opposed to 5 and 3 one-offs for some reason. But I guess that's a leak. You know what I mean? Like when you make 5-man stacks, do you try to have 5 with 3, or do you look more for just 5 and 3 big one-offs? Again, obviously it depends on the slate, but you get a slate like this where you can basically do whatever you want, right? There's so many different ways you could go. Like if you, again, I use the Oakland one as an example, but you have 5 things here, you could probably find 3 good one-offs in each of these positions, right? Or you could try to find like a 3-man mini stack or something like that. When it comes to beating these big tournaments, You said before that most people are going to play 5-man. What do most people do? Do most people play 5-man with 3 or 5 with 3 one-offs or I don't know. I'm just trying to.
I don't like the 5-man stacks as much, so I just don't play.
Oh, okay.
I just don't go that route.
Okay.
You can't on FanDuel anyway, but like I do think FanDuel, it makes more sense to correlate the 4-mans. I will play some 5-man, don't get me wrong. If I really like the spot enough, a lot of times it'll have to do with weather conditions and then also like what kind of bullpen you'll be facing after the starter, on a big slate, things like that. But there's not a spot. There's some good spots tonight that could blow up, but there's not like we have this Coors with an 8-run projection or something like that where you need to get 5 players. The optimum lineup is not going to have 5 players from the same team. It's just almost impossible that could ever happen. But
that's so interesting that you say that. Okay, I didn't.
Think about it realistically, because
right.
On a given day in baseball, 5 guys are going to have the equivalent of 2 home runs worth of production, at least.
Okay.
Usually, it's going to be more on a full slate like today. Might be 10 guys. Not necessarily hit 2 home runs, but a home run, a double, and a 3-run homer and a double scores 1 or 2 or something like that.
And what about on FanDuel, where you say it's more important that you correlated? Would you try to get more 4-4s on FanDuel?
No, you can't. I don't think they even let you do 4-4s. I think you have to use 3 teams minimum.
Well, you use your pitcher as your third.
I don't think that you're allowed to do that. I'm not sure though.
I think so.
Okay, that's possible. I think that you didn't used to be for sure, 100%. But you might be allowed to now. But on FanDuel, it's because of the way it goes. I tend to try and look for more 4-2-2s or maybe a 4-3-1 or sometimes I'll do like a 3-3-2, on certain slates. And I'm even flirting with doing it in a big buy-in today. I don't think you want to do that in general, but again, I have these stacks, the Cleveland stack, the Dodgers stack, the Houston stack as being sort of similar, and Philly as being sort of similar in my range. So getting a little bit of exposure to each of those 3-3-2s, trying to get the real power out of those spots, could be an optimal way to go today, and a little bit different than what everyone else is doing.
So I was going to go in further and say, what do you think you're going to be playing today? But you know what? We could save that for later. You know what I mean? So you'll come back on later if I can make it. I think I should be able to. And then we can talk more about what we're playing, what tournaments we're playing, how we're constructing or whatever. I know you're going to be probably, scrambling to tweak, and as I will too. But I think they kind of want to see that a little bit. You know what I mean? So I think we've done a pretty in-depth job with these games. It gives you guys at least something to work with. And with any luck, there's going to be nobody scratched for coronavirus. With any luck, I don't see any big rain issues today, which is interesting, right?
Feels great. I mean, well, it's interesting. For the beginning of the season, it's usually when we get it, but we don't get it. We're in the end of summer.
Because the beginning of the season is game 50 now.
Right, exactly. I'm excited, man. I something came back to me when we were doing this, and I don't want to take up any more time because we got to get out of here. It was a long video, but I really felt like I got something out of this. I got a real, I felt back, you know what I mean? I felt like I was back in my element. It just feels good. You know what I mean? I'm ready for the big season. I'm
psyched, man. I'm going to be very happy with my lineups. I don't know how I'm going to feel, at 3 innings in, but I know, but that's the good thing about baseball. You're down 14-0 in football, you got a problem. You know what I mean? Like if you haven't scored any runs in 4 innings, it doesn't matter. You always got a chance, especially when you have Dodgers lefties.
Yeah, except for in football, the one guy who won the millionaire, I remember he won it with the Giants. Remember they won that one game. Or no, I think they lost the game actually. They were down 28-0. They scored 4 touchdowns in the 4th quarter with like 10 minutes left against Philly. And I think they had 50 yards combined passing until then. And I think Manning threw for like 300 yards in the last 5-10 minutes, 2 touchdowns to Beckham. It was just nuts. You know what I mean? But that's pretty much in baseball. You're right. You're not out of it until it's late.
Till that last out.
That's all you got. All right, Cheats. Well, this was fun, buddy. Guys, good luck to y'all out there. We will see you at the top of the leaderboards tonight, and stay tuned for baseball season long. Let's go.
Wait, so what time are we looking at tonight, you think, probably? Like